2-hour film about Michael Jackson, the greatest entertainer of all time, and condense it down into 2 hours. Well, they don't, because it starts off when he's a little kid and then ends during the 1988 Bad Tour, right? So you couldn't cram everything in. Now, let's talk about a key discussion points. Jaafar Jackson, Michael Jackson's nephew. I'll tell you what, we know he's not MJ, but this guy was amazing. He embodied MJ. I'm telling you, about halfway through the film, when, it's that off-the-wall era, but when it gets to the Thriller era, and I'm not going to give away too much, but there are certain scenes where I'm just like, I know the music clips off by heart, Thriller, Beat It, and I'm like, that looks like MJ, but not only looks like MJ, it sounds like him and moves like him as well. There were those moments where I'm like, that's not Michael. Wait a minute, hang on, is it? I don't know, what are they doing here? Now, his voice, his dancing was great. The singing, I think at times they used a bit of him and MJ as well, so you could tell there. But mannerisms, the way he spoke, it was so eerily accurate, and he did an amazing job, Jaafar Jackson. I tell you what, I hope he does get nominated for something for this. It's not always about, nominations, isn't that? But seriously, how can you go past this? I'm not kidding. You look at Rami Malek and what's his name, Edgerton from Rocket Man. They got nominated for these types of roles, and even Rami Malek won an Oscar and Edgerton won Golden Globe for Rocket Man. If Jaafar Jackson doesn't get nominated for this, it is farcical. I'm not saying Bohemian Rhapsody was a bad film. I'm not saying Rami Malek's portrayal of Freddie Mercury wasn't good, but Jaafar Jackson as MJ beats it, and I'm putting it out there. Coleman Domingo as Joe Jackson and Nia Long as Catherine. They do a pretty good job, and I think a lot of the story is, Joe Jackson is the antagonist of the story. Now, if you've seen the old Jackson's miniseries back in the day, or if you are a hardcore fan, you know what Joe Jackson did to get his family where they were, right? Now, there is some scenes of like abuse in there as well, but not too much, but I think they kind of let Joe off pretty lightly, to be honest. But Coleman Domingo plays a really good Joe Jackson. I'll give him that. I just think it would have been a bit better if he was quite aggressive and he's a bit hard on Michael, but I think they kind of didn't go as hard as I thought they would. Miles Teller as John Branca, Laura Harrier, Suzanne Dupaz, and Kat Graham as Diana Ross were okay. They didn't stand out as much. They had pretty small roles, because the whole point of the film, guys, is Michael Jackson's story. It's Michael's story, so Jaafar Jackson takes center stage, pardon the pun. We don't need other characters to be part of the story, apart from maybe Joe. You can't fit everything into Michael's life from, the 60s till 88 in 2 hours. It's impossible. So a lot of things are going to be cut out. Now, the music and the concert scenes, that were the strengths in the movie. It didn't feel like it was like a greatest hits DVD or anything, but obviously, having Thriller in there, Beat It, how they go into the detail about how he created Beat It with the Crips and the Bloods was really cool as well. The Thriller stuff, they didn't really touch it. They touched on it a little bit. They had a bit of a snippet there with John Landis, but John Landis doesn't actually say anything to the camera. But it was still pretty cool to see that. At points during that Thriller sequence, I legit thought, wow, this looks identical to the clip. Now, is that why we're watching it? Do we want to watch this, Jaafar Jackson imitating MJ? No, because that's not the point of it. But I guess it's fan service saying, hey, look, here's Thriller. Hey, look, here's Beat It. Hey, look, here's Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. I get that. But a lot of the film did go in a frantic pace as well. So there was a lot of, he starts off with a kid, then they get better, they rehearse, Michael gets beaten by Joe, then they go into a club, and then it's like they go perform at a club and he's a little kid. And then there's little snippets here and there of him, like, being alone, so to speak, but not as much as when he was a bit older. Now, the story obviously going from the 60s in Gary, Indiana, and then ending during the bad era, it's interesting. People say, oh, why didn't they, mention all the controversy stuff? Well, it ended during the bad era, which was before the allegations in 93, right? So apparently, I don't know exactly, they filmed a different type of ending which addressed some of that, right? I've read some stuff on Reddit and the internet, but they had to pull that and reshoot it because of legal reasons, etc. It would be interesting to see what they actually did there, because the way the film ends is quite abrupt, in my opinion. I wanted more. Like, it ends on that bad concert and it's just like, boom, that's it, credits. I'm like, what? That's it? Like, it was 2 hours and 5 minutes or whatever it was. It flew by, and I'm like, oh, please, I hope there's a sequel. But, there's friends of mine telling me, oh, there's definitely going to be a sequel. They've greenlit it, but I can't get the definitive answer on that. And I don't know how they're actually going to do that. How are they going to address some of the things later on in MJ's life? It'll be very interesting to see. And that leads me to the initial reviews that I saw, which were like 33%, 37% on Rotten Tomatoes, but then the audience score is like 97, 98. So here we've got a bit of divide of like hardcore fans or just fans of MJ in general going on Rotten Tomatoes, giving us this 90 score. But then these critics that I believe is like a smear campaign because of the whole allegations and Leaving Netherland documentary, which is no longer available on HBO as well. All these critics saying, they left out all the controversial stuff. What is the point of the film? The point of the film is a celebration to MJ. It's not to bring up all this stuff here because the movie ends during the bad era. And then you got critics saying, how convenient that it ends at that era, isn't it? Well, they can't put those bits in because of the legal reasons. You actual idiot. Idiots, sorry. The Jackson estate helped produce it. They funded a lot of it. It makes it does make it a bit authentic. A lot of people say it's been sanitized. It's like their version of events. I get that. Even Paris Jackson said this is like a different version of events. Now, the hardcore fans will pick on the little problems here and there, not problems, but things that aren't quite accurate, like apparently Bubbles. I'm pretty sure he got Bubbles more to 83, 84, but in this, he gets Bubbles during the Off the Wall era. Big deal, okay? Some things are going to be changed. It's not meant to be a documentary. It's meant to be a film, okay? And it's impossible to add everything in. People are like, why didn't they add We Are the World in there? And they really glossed over the Grammy stuff. Yeah, it would have been nicer to get a bit of a background as to the Billie Jean especially, how he wrote that actual rhythm. I think the best scenes for me were definitely, the bits when he's a kid are okay, but I like from when Jaafar Jackson takes over and he's MJ off the wall onwards. Obviously, the Thriller stuff was great. It's great watching them recreate, clips, but I really enjoyed the Beat It part where he meets with those gangs. That was like one of my favorite bits. And the concert part at the end was awesome. I like the quiet parts of the film where he's talking to his mum, he's watching TV, he's laughing at the Three Stooges and he's reading his Neverland book that they keep going back to. And there's other little like Easter eggs, like when he's a kid, he's reading The Wizard of Oz and there's a picture of the Scarecrow. There's a little Easter egg for the hardcore fans, the Wiz. But just the little scenes where I think it was like when he's talking to his mum, there's just these scenes where it feels like it's MJ speaking, like you're there on the couch with him and Catherine and he's talking to his mum and that voice, his vocal inflection is just amazing. It's like, the fan reactions, the positive reactions from the fans. Is it just nostalgia? Because, a lot of the critics are calling it shallow. I don't know. But all I know is this. I thought it was a great film and it was entertaining. Yes, some things were a bit, different to how they actually happened. But come on, man. Like in Bohemian Rhapsody, there's a whole bunch of scenes that didn't actually happen like that. And at least this didn't have a whole bunch of scenes of just random Freddie Mercury sitting there on the piano going dun 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 dun, and then his girlfriend's like, "Oh, what's that?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, something I've been working on." Come on, where's it going to go from here? Is there going to be a sequel? I don't know. We touched on it before. If they choose to do the sequel, then they will have to change names of all the people that were part of the legal proceedings back in the day. Right, I'm not going to get into it, but how they will actually do that, I don't know. I think Jaafar Jackson could do a really good job. They did touch a bit on the vitiligo as well. They did touch on a bit about he's got this sense of isolation and loneliness, but I don't think they really channeled too much into that when they should have. Like there was no scenes of him as a kid looking out of the window and like he used to say in those interviews, I used to look out of the window and see kids playing with, in the park and I'd be like, I want to go play there. And he couldn't, right? They didn't really have much of that. They had more of that when he was a bit older, like he buys a Twister, the board game, and he asks his brothers to play and they don't want to, and then he buys a llama and he buys Bubbles. So they kind of try to put that into that kind of pigeonhole where it's like, yeah, he hasn't had a childhood, so he's like a little kid. He's like a man in a kid's body, if that makes sense. It's hard for a biopic to get every single step along the way, cover everything, okay? But I think they did a really good job, the director and the estate, okay? Now, the reviews are mixed, like I just said, but for me personally, as a lifelong MJ fan, I went in there and, I'm not saying I got emotional at points, but it was like I remembered, when I was watching it, how MJ was for me growing up, and also the fact that, I used to get teased in primary school and a bit of high school for liking MJ because of all the allegations and stuff like that. So I have always been a big, huge fan of MJ and I believed he was innocent 100%. So seeing this and knowing how the story ends got me a little bit upset too, because he was at his peak, man. And then even in the 90s, you got to remember that, yeah, MJ was big in the 70s and 80s, with Thriller, but I reckon globally, MJ was bigger in the 90s, okay? You had Dangerous and you had the History albums come out as well. So that's my hot take too. in summing up, I reckon this deserves probably a 4 out of 5, 100%, maybe even a 4.5, but a 4 out of 5. Jaafar Jackson blew it out of the park. He embodied MJ. I enjoyed watching it. I wasn't bored. It does go at a frantic pace, but it does cover a lot of things. It leaves little things out as well, but what do you expect, okay? If you wanted the whole controversial stuff, then you're looking for the wrong film. Go watch a documentary. Go watch something else. If you're looking for a Jackson 5 recap of everything, go watch the Jackson American Dream miniseries. That goes into a hell of a lot of detail. This one kind of flies through it. I love MJ, and I've always loved MJ, listening to his music nonstop, dancing, trying to practice his dancing before YouTube and all that, putting in the tape and trying to remember all the dance moves, performing, at events with like a dance crew that I used to be in, dance-offs around Melbourne, tribute nights. It's just part of me, wearing the fedora. The logo for DASKA Discusses has a fedora on it because of MJ, and because I wear a fedora because of MJ as well. So I just want to say 4 out of 5 for me. Go watch it. Make up your own mind. And I really hope that you guys enjoyed this review. It was impromptu, or the day after I watched it. And go out there and don't forget to follow my Spotify, DASKA Discusses on Spotify or on Apple, whatever you want. And I'll see you on Wednesday for my next episode. Catch you then. See you later. DASKA out. Boom.